Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And today I'm excited to talk about this one. This is the Tuya Caladan version 2. Shout out to the Apex Pass Round group and to Tuya Knives for loaning me this knife so that I can give you my 10 cents. And I'm excited today because this is an opportunity, the first opportunity I've had, in fact, to check out a Skelton Bladeworks design. Now, Jim Skelton is not only a knife designer and knife maker in his own right, he's actually a member of the community. You probably have already known him. You probably already have watched his review videos, but he's someone that's been around the block a time or two, and he knows something about knife making, knife design, and he's had the opportunity to handle what is potentially thousands of knives. So you have to understand that when you look at this, there is a wealth of experience and knowledge that goes into a design like this, and I'm really interested to see how that pans out. Now, I've had this in my possession for the last couple of days, and so I've had an opportunity to get a feel for it, and I do have some opinions, some good, some not so good, but let's go ahead and get into it. The Tuya Caladan version 2, this specific version costs $280. And what does your hard-earned money really get you? Well, the knife is overall about 8.5 inches long with a blade that is 3 3/4 inches. It is made entirely of S90V, and it is both hand rubbed and DLC coated. What's really cool is you can actually see that hand rubbed finish through the DLC coated blade. That's nice. Now, if you're someone that cares about getting fingerprints all over your knife, you might want to look for just the regular satin, hand rubbed satin finish, because this DLC really does pick up fingerprints, well, really easily. And that's kind of a shame because that hand rub finish really does look good. The handle scales are made entirely of titanium, and they are milled out in this frag pattern style. We have a single-sided captive pivot, hallelujah, that is in fact T8 running on ceramic bearings, and we have a 3D milled titanium pocket clip as well as a 3D milled backspacer. Those handle scales are nicely pocketed and milled out for some extra weight relief. It's a frame lock, and let's go ahead and check out that lockup. Lockup on here is going to be coming in at about, we'll call it 30%, maybe 35%. How's the blade centering? Blade centering, it's nearly perfect, not a huge deal, a little bit to the right, but nothing too major. The detent is very, very nicely tuned. And guys, I got to say, that's important on a knife that is a single deployment option only. When you're going with one option and one option only, it's got to be the showstopper. It's got to be the main attraction. It's got to be something that you can live with because, well, it's the only way that you can deploy it. In a world that is devoured by fidget-friendly knives with 1,000,001 deployments, I actually admire someone who is brave enough to go with a single deployment. The amount of times that I've put out a video on a flipper only knife and people say, it's cool, I just don't like flipper only, well, it's been a lot. And it's something that I come to expect quite regularly. If that's you, let me know in the comments section down below. Will you automatically say no to a flipper only knife? Let me know. Let's have a discussion. There are quite a few things to like on this knife. The first is going to be the aesthetics. Aesthetically speaking, I think that this looks very sleek. I really enjoy the design lines. We've got a nice deep hollow grind here with a very generous edge bevel. Now, typically on factory edge bevels, they're usually thin and very obtuse, and that helps with the toughness, but not necessarily the sliciness of the blade. On this one, it's nice and thin there on that hollow grind. Being a spear point, we have a swedge here at the top, which will help with tension relief when you are slicing through materials, and it looks good. It continues to look good with that hand rubbed finish. I'm actually very impressed that we have both DLC and a hand rubbed finish on the same knife, and it's under $300. Typically, hand rubbed finish options are on knives that are much, much more expensive. And that is not to be understated at all. I really actually admire the fact that he didn't shy away from a longer pocket clip. And I'll tell you why. Because on frame lock knives, especially frame lock knives that are flipper tab only, usually it's very easy to accidentally put too much pressure on that lock bar and increase the detemp pressure to a point where you just fail the flipper and hurt your finger. And that's a bad day all around. And the nice thing about that pocket clip being the length that it is that it actually allows you to have a place to put your fingers so that you're not running into the lock bar and putting undue pressure on it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't things on this knife that are kind of disappointing to me. And there's really two things that are kind of disappointing to me. We'll call it three, actually. We'll start with one that is kind of ergonomics based. You see this lock bar relief cutout right there? That has a corner which is actually, I'm not going to call it sharp because it's not going to break the skin, but that is super, super uncomfortable. If you are unfortunate enough to run the pad of your finger over that, you will in fact notice it. There's no reason for that corner to not be knocked down, and something that they could have done to alleviate that is actually reverse it so the relief cutout was on the inside, not on the outside, because the rest of these handle scales really is nicely milled out and nicely chamfered over, and that's just kind of a harsh spot in a sea of otherwise comfortable handle scales. The next thing after that is something that some of you might be tired of hearing me talk about, and that is going to be T6 body screws. I'm actually surprised to see a knife designed by a content creator and knife designer with T6. Now, it's one of those things where some people are like, I don't really care. I care more about the depth of the screw. And some people are like, no, I take my knives apart and I'm really tired of having to switch Torx bits and find a Torx T6 that is not stripped out. The last thing is less of a complaint because I don't use lanyards, so I don't care about it all that much. But I'm really confused. Why did we put a lanyard hole there and then make the slots for that lanyard hole so thin? Most lanyards that end up on knives are made out of paracord, and it's going to take a really, really small gauge paracord to even fit through there. I'm not sure how that is going to work. And if it's not necessarily supposed to work, if it's just supposed to be aesthetic, I would have much rather have seen this backspacer elongated so that it served the purpose of protecting the blade in your pocket against crap like change and keys and other stuff that can run up against the edge of that knife. I would have much rather have seen a longer backspacer. I think that the lanyard hole design like that aesthetically looks pleasing, but is ultimately not very functional. Overall, again, for $280, I am rather impressed. You don't see too many combinations of S90V and milled titanium with 3D milled pocket clip with a design language like this, with hand rub satin finish under DLC. You don't typically see that at this price point. So for the money, this specific configuration is one that I think is rather impressive. Is it perfect? No, but let's be honest, most knives are not perfect. Most knives usually have at least one or two things that we wish would have been done different. I mean, it's easy to stand behind the camera and say, why didn't we do this? When reality is something completely different. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Do you like the Caladan V2? Do you not like it? Do you own one? Are you thinking about buying one, or is this one a pass for you? If not, why not? Let me know in the comments section down below, guys. And by the way, if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, make sure to click on one of the videos that pops up next.